You choose hope over me. You will regret this for eternity!
My choice is made, Moros. Hope will endure.
Following night in the land of Morlin, Lamia was summoned into her father's dimly lit throne room. Before she could even respond to her father's calls, Lamia saw before her eyes the most beautiful, black and royal purple dress she had ever laid eyes on. One of the servant daimons handled the dress with care and bestowed it to Lamia. "Father!" Lamia gasped with her hand over her mouth. "Royal purple silk is so rare, even beyond the lands of Pyrelithra. How is this even possible?" "Lamia, my dear," replied Morida with a devilish grin. "It's about time you realize that you are a princess, a Stygian royal of House Moride." Lamia quickly fitted the dress to herself, and it was a perfect, flawless fit. Lamia, for the first time in her life, actually felt worthy of meeting the Prince of the Sun in this new, moonlit wardrobe. "Oh, father," Lamia wept, running to Morida. "I always thought you were so cold and demanding, but this shows you've always cared about me." "Lamia, my little serpent," reassured Morida. "I admit, I can be cold at times, but I always want the best for my children. I don't want to bore you with the details, but let's just say, I called up a few favors from your aunts, the Moray, to take the time out to weave that perfect dress for your royal date with Prince Eulopides." Hearing this, Lamia for the first time felt a surge of hope in such a dark place as Morlin. This had to have been a dream. But no, this was actually real. "Oh, one more thing," said Morida. "I almost forgot. Prince Eulopides loves pomegranates, correct? Then, give him this for you two to split on your date. Since he brought you food last time, it's only fair that you return the favor." Lamia was captivated by the large, peculiar, purple pomegranate Morida gifted her. This was unlike any pomegranate that she'd seen before. Usually, they're a bright or blood-red color. However, this was a pomegranate that glowed of amethyst, the same eye color of the Moride. "Yes, this is Eulopides' favorite fruit," replied Lamia. "But I've never seen such a lush fruit grow in such a place as Morlin before. How is this possible?" Morida chuckled, saying, "That's because it didn't grow here in Morlin, but came directly from the underworld. This is the Stygian pomegranate, the rarest, most lush fruit to ever grow in the underworld. Your older brothers Erebus, Morpheus, and a few other Moride ventured into the abyss to find the best of the best gift our people had you to give to Eulopides. Your date will show the Promethean royal family that we, Moride, can be givers too." Without hesitation, Lamia gave Morida the biggest, bear hug she could as both Morida and the other Morida all smiled devilishly, as all was going according to plan. The new moon hung over Pyrelithra like a missing eye in the face of the heavens. For the citizens of the Sun Kingdom, this was the only night the sky felt truly naked, devoid of Helios's reflection. The air, usually smelling of baked earth and warm honey, carried a strange, crisp stillness. At the edge of the palace vineyards, where the golden torchlight warred with the encroaching shadows, Prince Eulopides waited. He was not the naive boy who had offered bread to a stranger a month ago. He was a prince armed with a titan's warnings, his mind a battlefield between hope and foresight. He kept touching the hilt of his ceremonial dagger, then pulling his hand away, hating the suspicion that had taken root in his heart. He expected the soft padding of hyena paws. He expected a hunched figure in a dusty wool cloak, smelling faintly of ozone and desperation. Instead, the earth began to tremble. It wasn't the rhythmic pounding of mortal horses. It was a deeper, subterranean vibration that seemed to rattle the teeth of everyone gathered at the gate. The temperature plummeted, frosting the breath in Eulopides' lungs. Out of the deepest shadow of the vineyard lane, where the torchlight refused to reach, a chariot emerged. It was forged not of bronze or gold, but of polished obsidian, so black it seemed to drink the light around it. The wheels spun silently, rimmed with cold iron. Pulling it were two stallions that could only have been bred in the stables of the abyss. Their coats were the vantablack of a starless void, their eyes burning with cold, violet fire, and vapor steamed from their nostrils in the warm night air. Driving the chariot was a hulking Moride guard, clad in armor made of chitin and petrified root. His face a stony mask of indifference. A collective gasp rippled through the gathered Pyrelithran guards and servants. They had heard rumors of the Shadow Eaters beyond the borders, but they had never seen their majesty. They whispered nervously, failing utterly to connect this terrifying spectacle with the rumors of the ragged beggar girl from the previous month. Eurylpides felt his breath catch in his throat. He took an involuntary step forward as the chariot ground to a halt before him. The guard stepped down and offered a gauntlet hand. From the cab of the chariot, Lamia descended. If she had been a moonlit mystery before, she was now a Stygian goddess. The dress Morida had gifted her was a weapon of mass distraction. Woven by the moire themselves, the fabric didn't just hang on her frame. It moved like living shadow water, a deepest royal purple that shimmered with unseen constellations as she walked. It clung to her newfound confidence, transforming the hesitant refugee into undeniable royalty. Her jet-black hair, once hidden by a hood, cascaded in intricate braids woven with amethyst beads that caught the torchlight and turned it cold. Her eyes, those piercing, Mordian purple eyes, found Eurylpides instantly. But there was no fear in them tonight, only a calm, regal intensity, buoyed by the false love of a father who was using her as bait. In her hands, cradled like a precious heart, she held the glowing, violet Stygian pomegranate. Eurylpides stopped dead in his tracks 5 feet away. His brain short-circuited. The image of the shivering girl in the vineyard evaporated, replaced by this vision of dark power. That seductive form, his father's voice whispered in the back of his mind. A Stygian beauty dressed in purple and black. The prophecy was manifesting right in front of him. It was terrifying. It was grotesque. And God's help him, it was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Prince Eurylpides, Lamia said, her voice smoother and richer than before, echoing slightly in the silence. She offered a small, practiced curtsy that was more of a challenge than a submission. You said you wished to see the wonders of the deep. I thought it was only proper that I arrive at my station. She straightened, holding his gaze, the purple pomegranate pulsing faintly in her hands. My father sends his regards, she said, a faint smile touching her lips, oblivious to the chilling effect those words had on the prince. And he insists that we Moride know how to return kindness. At that moment, Eurylpides was experiencing a massive case of cognitive dissonance. His father gave him the map, showed him the traps, and even named the monster, but he didn't account for the fact that the trap would look like the most breathtaking thing in the cosmos. Eurylpides was failing his father's test of self-discipline. He was looking for reasons to doubt the warning. He likely thought, my father said she was a taker, but she brought a gift. He said she was a mask, but her eyes looked so full of hope. Surely, the great titan of foresight got this one wrong. This is exactly what Morida and his people wanted. They didn't need to break Eurylpides' spirit. They just needed to distract his suspicion with a pretty bow. While Eurylpides was starstruck by the chthonic, glitz, and glamour of Lamia, the Moride lurked in the shadows preparing an invasion of Pyrelithra. Morida stands before his people expressing just how he's waited so long for this perfect day. He gloats to his people that there was no deception in his words when he told Lamia that the Moride can be givers, too, however. Their gifts won't be sun-bread, nectar, or the warmth of the sun. No, they'll be daggers laced with the venom of Moro's fangs, preserved for such a time as this with enough toxins to kill a god, the cover of night and shadows, as well as the insatiable thirst to finally claim the godhood that should have always belonged to our people. Our dear princess, Lamia will be the perfect, gift-wrapped Trojan horse the Prometheans never saw coming. My brothers of the abyss, my children of the long hunger, for eons, the Prometheans have looked down upon us from their marble balconies, pitying us as takers. They think they are the only ones capable of a gift. They think their sun-bread and their hope are the only currencies that matter. Tonight, we show them that the Moride are givers, too. Down there, in the heart of their sacred vineyard, our princess, our gift-wrapped Lamia, is currently being welcomed into the arms of their golden prince. She goes to him in the silk of the fates and the chariot of the void. She believes she carries a bridge to peace. She is wrong. She carries the Stygian pomegranate, the anchor that will drag the prince's spirit into our depths. And while they feast on that amethyst rod, we bring our own offerings. We do not bring bread. We bring the venom of Moros, preserved in the dark since the day the Great Father was struck down. This toxin does not kill the body. It dissolves the divinity. It turns their golden Ichor into lead. They gave us the dark. Tonight, we give them the end. They never saw her coming because they were too busy looking at her beauty. They were too busy feeling hope to notice the shadow growing in their own garden. The Trojan horse didn't need to be made of wood. It only needed to be made of a girl's desperate need to be loved. Draw your blades, my serpents, laced with the fangs of our father. We march. Pyrelithra will not fall to a siege. It will fall to an infection. By dawn, the sun will not rise. We will. The royal guards all welcomed both Prince Eulopides and Princess Lamia into the Promethean castle. As the guards escorted the pair into the royal throne room, Lamia was expecting a formal, stoic greeting from both the Sun King and bringer of hope herself. However, she wasn't expecting this when once the doors swung open. Elpis leaped unto both Eulopides and Lamia, as she excitedly wrapped her arms around both the sun and shadow pair. "Welcome home, Eulopides," exclaims Elpis, and "Welcome to Pyrelithra, Lamia. I'm pretty sure Eulopides has already told you about us, but name is Elpis, and this is both my husband, Eulopides' father Prometheus, the Sun King. I have such a good feeling about you, Lamia. You'll make an excellent daughter-in-law." "Mother, please." Eulopides looked sheepishly. "It's just a first date." "And," replied Elpis, "I want grand kids." Lamia's face turns beet red as Prometheus looks at her poised, yet innocent reactions. He started to think to himself that perhaps this Moride may be different from the others. Maybe she is the spark that will illuminate the darkness of her bloodline. At the same, Lamia started to feel insecure about herself to actually have such a perfect, beautiful, ageless goddess actually wanting to be the grandmother of her children. To outsiders, it would be considered a virtual impossibility for such an immaculate, radiant beauty to ever be called a grandmother. While Elpis was being a gleeful chatterbox, started to wonder to herself how she could possibly match the beauty of Eulopides' mother. As the night in the Promethean palace continues, the conversations between Elpis and Lamia are filled with calm humor, stylish compliments, and sprinkled in grandparent jokes, much to Eulopides' embarrassment. The torches at the front gates of Pyrelithra all suddenly got out, leaving the streets in eerie darkness that looked as if the shadows themselves were lurking predators. For the townspeople who only knew light, the encroaching darkness wasn't a normal sight to behold. "What's going on?" asked a villager alarmed by the shadows. "Last I checked, the lights are always lit on Pyrelithra." "Correct?" said a pair of glowing, purple eyes behind the villager. "But after tonight, these shadows will replace the fire of Prometheus. Greetings from the Moride." At that moment, a villager was stabbed and collapsed to the ground as the other villagers fled panicking and crying for help. Meanwhile, there were a few Promethean guards doing their best to defend against the Moride. However, fighting against them in the darkness, something they excel in, the guards may as well have been meat shields used for target practice. Prometheus heard the cries of his people and signaled to Elpis that the two needed to step away for a bit and let Eulopides continue his date with Lamia. Before Morida and his men could do any more damage, both Prometheus and Elpis descended from the night skies like lightning bolts, and their presence immediately illuminated the scene. "There they are," exclaimed Morida. "I can't tell you both just how long we've been dying to see you two." "Morida," Prometheus said firmly, "my patience with your kind has finally reached its limit. Your kind does nothing but take, and if you can't take, you'll corrupt. What will it take to satisfy you?" "Why, your complete and utter annihilation," replied Morida. "As proud Moride, you of all deities should know that every cell, every molecule in our bodies calls for the extermination of both your light and presence from the mortal realm. Plus, we have the gifts to prove it, added Erebus, holding a dagger dripping with poison Prometheus could recognize. Didn't expect to see this return, did you? Elpis stood crushed and baffled, saying, Why? Why do you hate us? You have no cause to hate us. We've done literally nothing to receive this level of malice. We've shared our bread, our nectar, our resources with all you. Why wasn't that enough? Elpis, my dear Elpis, replied Morpheus. Before our curse, we were limocytes plagued with an insatiable hunger. Us meeting you only exacerbated that hunger. You gave us a hunger that neither your nectar or sunbread could sate. No, we hunger for you, your essence, to taste what you offered exclusively to Prometheus to birth Eulopides. After we're finished with him, we men of the Moridae will all have you to ourselves. Prometheus let out a seemingly calm sigh before signaling Elpis to transform herself into a dove to whisk both herself and the injured citizens of Pyrelithra into her healing chambers. Prometheus then proclaims to the Moridae, You claim to be a king, Morida, but you are merely a hole where a soul should be. You didn't come here to rule Pyrelithra. You came here to hide from the truth of your own emptiness. So, allow me to illuminate the very truth you all tried to hide for so long. The slithering brood of vipers you really are. Prometheus then transformed into a giant, radiant, golden phoenix that shined as bright as the sun itself. The mere exposure to such radiance caused all the Moridae that confronted Prometheus to immediately shed their shadowy, human facades and reveal themselves to be beastly, black and purplish, lizard people with viper fangs. As the transformed Moridae all tried to rush Prometheus with their venomous weapons, the fiery gusts from Prometheus' wings was enough to incinerate any Moridae from getting anywhere near close to him. However, in the midst of the Moridae each being slain one by one, Prometheus noticed something very odd. Under normal circumstances, the final moments of slain enemies are looks of fear, anguish, or rage. But, for whatever reason, this wasn't the case for the Moridae. As Prometheus noticed on each of their faces in their moments were looks of sadistic glee or triumphant grins. It was as if they all knew something Prometheus didn't. Meanwhile, in the palace's dining hall, Lamia sliced open the lush, Stygian pomegranate half for her and half for Eulopides. The Sun Prince was immediately captivated by that dark, concentrated aroma the fruit gave off. Eulopides had more than his fair share of pomegranates, but not one like this. You're very curious, aren't you, Eulopides? Said Lamia, blushing and looking sheepish. My father told me this particularly is best enjoyed when shared with another, someone very special and important. Lamia, you really think I'm special? Asked Eulopides, surprised. I thought you saw me as just another sheltered, pampered prince. Never, replied Lamia passionately. You're a literal god. Both of your parents are gods and kind, beloved ones at that. In Morlin, we were taught that gods were cruel, unpredictable, and oftentimes wrathful. Yet, after meeting you and experiencing all the lovely gifts you've given me, that couldn't be any further from the truth. So, we all came together and shared the best thing my people had to offer with you, my son Prince. I know it isn't much, but it's the best and most valuable fruit we could find to share with you. Hearing those words, Eulopides said, Lamia, this is plenty. You're no taker at all. You're a giver, you're my moonlit flower. Any gift from you is a blessing, and I couldn't think of a more fitting person to share this rare treasure with other than yourself, Lamia. The air was filled to the top with swells of emotion as both sides ate the Stygian pomegranate. After both sides ate their halves, they both commented on the sweet lushness of the fruit. However, for a brief moment, both parties felt intoxicated for a few seconds before returning to their sober states. My goodness, exclaimed Eulopides, laughing nervously. Who knew such a fruit held such a kick? I agree, replied Lamia, regaining her composure. It was sweet. I didn't expect it to leave me feeling as if I'd drink wine afterwards. Prince Eulopides, let me excuse myself for a moment. I need to get some air. Lamia walked outside of the palace and noticed the loud commotion and large flashes of light taking place, off in the square of Pyrelithra. Lamia walked back inside to inform Eulopides of the sudden commotion. That's when the pair went together to see what was going on. Both Eulopides and Lamia see the charred remains of scaly corpses, as Prometheus purges the remaining Moridae. Lamia looks in horror, seeing the terrifying phoenix form of Prometheus burning her fellow Moridae to ash. Just when it seemed like the conflict ended, Callo appeared from the shadows in an attempt to stab the distracted phoenix form of Prometheus, while he noticed both Eulopides and Lamia arrive at the scene. Before either side could explain themselves, Callo tried to stab Prometheus with one of the discarded venom daggers. Prometheus, acting on impulse, blasted Callo with a fiery gust of wind without realizing he took the life of a small child in front of Lamia's very eyes as she cried out to Callo. Eulopides never saw this side of his father before and was at a complete loss of words. All his life, Eulopides believed Prometheus was the ultimate giver, yet before him laid mounds of charred corpses of lives taken in the aftermath and his own father burning a child alive. Lamia cradled Callo in her arms like a mother mourning the final moments of her only child. Lamia begged for Callo to stay with her as he muttered to Lamia his final words. "You're our only hope, big sis. This was all for you." Lamia silently closed Callo's eyes and looked back at Prometheus glaring. This time, her eyes weren't purple. They were a gleaming, bloody red. "You gods of light are the ultimate hypocrites," said Lamia. "You called us beasts and monsters who lurked in the dark, yet we've never killed any of your people." "Lamia, please," said Prometheus. "Let me explain." Suddenly, Lamia let out a deafening screech, and the spirits of all the slain Moridae all coalesced into a single, dark essence and merged themselves into Lamia's body. If that's all, half of Eulopides' divinity was also absorbed into Lamia's essence, granting her access to godlike powers. Then it suddenly hit both Prometheus and Eulopides. This is what the Moridae were after all along. It wasn't to slay Prometheus, assault Elpis, or conquer Pyrelithra. Their goal was to create another doom god in the form of Lamia, at the expense of Eulopides' divinity. In Lamia's final moments of humanity, the paradise she envisioned, walking the blissful meadows of Pyrelithra with Eulopides, along with a young, cheerful Callo tagging along as three sat and rested in peace, was forever shattered thanks to that brute, Prometheus. This was all his fault. His light must be extinguished. This was the perfect mindset that allowed the true identity of the mass of dark spirits that invaded Lamia to finally surface and reveal themselves. What was once Lamia burst into psychotic laughter, as she spoke in a dark voice where it sounded as if legions of other entities were speaking through her. "Prometheus, Morida, Callo, and lastly Eulopides," she said. "You have certainly played your roles quite well. You've literally gift-wrapped us the perfect vessel to call our own." While Elpis was healing the wounded townspeople in her chamber using her sacred cornucopia, she sensed a sudden air of wrongness in the atmosphere and whisked herself back to the scene of the fiasco. The moment Elpis appeared, she immediately realized who and what was now taking control over Lamia's body. "So that's what it was," Elpis said with a defiant look. "I wasn't enough for you, so you all waited this long, occupying yourselves inside each of the Moridae, only to get close enough to our son and take from him. This is an all-time low, even for you Urians." "Well, we had to go somewhere," chuckled the Urians inhabiting Lamia. "Did you really think that when you got that extra boost from humanity's hope that we'd magically disappear? Yes, Moros hired us to heap blame and shame on you for eons." Elpis. "But like him, you Prometheans became our favorite targets, and the Moridae were the perfect vessels to house our essence just long enough for us to get to Eulopides, and now that we have that power in our possession, we can continue where Moros left off." Before either Elpis or Prometheus could stop her, the former Lamia transformed into a form that no one had ever seen before. Lamia didn't transform into a complete reptilian like the other Moridae. No, her form was both completely different and even more frightening. It was the form of a giant, black serpent that walked on 4 legs and now possessed a large pair of bat-like wings, and was able to shoot fire from its mouth. It was a walking, chimeric monstrosity that many people would consider a dragon by today's standards. Lamia's form is perhaps what started the myth of dragons. It was a grotesque blend between the shadows of the Moridae essence and the stolen flames and power of the Promethean bloodline. Just as the dragon was about to launch and hurl fireballs at both Prometheus and Elpis, the weakened Eulepides stepped in between the crossfire and found himself, for whatever reason, completely unharmed. This frustrated the former Lamia, as she called Eulepides an insufferable pest and wondered why she couldn't turn the prince into ash. That's when it finally hit Eulepides. The Stygian pomegranate was a double-edged sword. The fruit represented one body, one soul. While Lamia had access to Eulepides' divinity, she could never use that power to harm Eulepides or vice versa, since that fruit was practically a cosmic wedding engagement. So, Eulepides had to think of a way to de-escalate the situation in a way where it couldn't harm his wife. The exhausted Eulepides, with his remaining divinity, mustered up enough power to blast the dragon with a ray of light that didn't destroy it, but rather seemed to have warped the beast elsewhere, with Eulepides starting to vanish alongside it. As both Prometheus and Elpis wept and cried out to their son disappearing before their very eyes, Eulepides gave his parents the brightest smile before vanishing and said, "Weep not, father, mother. This was all my responsibility, and I'll be the one to fix this, even if it takes me several lifetimes." Just like that, Eulepides and the dragon vanished in a ray of light, leaving both Prometheus and Elpis stunned. Elpis, while knowing her son was still alive, still mourned over the fact of both her and Prometheus now being forced to now watch their child live the life of a mortal far away from the comfort of Pyrelithra, without any memory of his former, divine life. It was a devastating blow to the Promethean family and all of Pyrelithra afterwards. Yes, the Moridae were all gone, and the dragon was no longer a threat to the people of the Sun Kingdom. However, the clear victory felt so hollow, knowing that Eulepides won't be there to be praised as the hero of Pyrelithra and the future of both Prometheus Fire and Elpis Hope. Meanwhile, in the underworld, the Fates cackled to themselves about the inevitable unraveling of fate that took place. King Morida never stood a chance against Prometheus, said Clotho. Yet he was so desperate. It was an all-consuming passion of both he and his fellow Moridae, added Lachesis. I can remember his words clearly. If there was a future where they could taint the legacy of the Prometheans in any form or fashion, they didn't care what happened to them afterwards. Now, added Atropos, Moride's very own words have condemned both himself and his people to extinction. Now, all that's left is to see what fate has left in store for both Lamia, Serpent of Shadows, and Eulepides born from the Song of Hope and Fire. Elsewhere, in an unknown forest, a woman named Lilith with fig leaves sewn as clothes picks up a strange, black and purple pomegranate fruit with a dragon's face on it and takes a bite out of the fruit. Suddenly, she develops pale skin, jet black hair and blood-red eyes, and grins sinisterly. Meanwhile, Eulepides wakes up on the shores of Libya, just south of Greece, and is awoken and comforted by a local woman named Tala, telling him that he's washed up ashore. Eulepides trusts this kind woman and agrees to follow her. However, when Tala asks Eulepides for his name, he couldn't seem to remember his previous life nor origins. So, for the sake of convenience, Tala nicknamed the stranger Bahi, a name that means radiant, because Tala was captivated by how stunning his gleaming white hair, bronze skin, and golden eyes looked in the sun. Eulepides liked the nickname very well, but sensed that there was something he was supposed to be doing. However, he couldn't quite remember what it was at the moment. To be continued.